us another day. All we do is scream into the night. Nothing ever tries to change, even if I want to realize. 'Cause I've been sitting here, same old ways, taking off without the same mistake. Darling, when you go away, it won't be as simple for you.
Yo guys, Old Man G here, RDS, back again with another Manchester United sales update. I'm joined by the lovely Tom the Journalist. You've got a great show. It's gonna be a great Friday night, guys, if you're in the UK anyway. A great Friday night. We have back-to-back shows. We're gonna do our sales updates for the next hour or so. And afterwards, we're gonna redirect you onto the weekly Q&A, which will be a bit more laid back. We'll be talking about the Spurs United preview, the latest update regarding transfers, especially Maguire and Amrabat, and obviously we'll have your general weekly Q&A questions. So the Q&A show, which was going to happen at this time, is now going to be at 11:35:40. So, but this show in particular is regarding the sales update. Regarding obviously some went to Manchester United. Before we get into it, guys, remember if you're on the channel, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter X and smash that notification button for latest Manchester United news and more. So, Tom, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Cheers, as always. Anyway, and thanks for having me back on as always. And anybody who's watching the comments, and like you say, even if you come in on the second stream, come and rewatch the first stream or second stream if you're going to bed, you've got work, whatever the next day. Come and show G support, leave them a like, subscribe, costs nothing, people. So yeah, what road are you on to now, G? What are you near subscribers wise? Whereabouts are you near?
So just over. So I'm almost close to 5K. So we get about
5K,
40 plus subscribers, 40 subscribers, then we'll get to 4K. So that's the
plan.
Get
him to 4K. Get him to 4K. Great. Come on, people.
Shout out to everyone in the chat as well. Shout out to Stephanie saying big up RDS. And then shout out to, I think Lucky Singh must have been chat, but I can't see his comments. And then, big up Tom the Truth as well. Everything Carpy says, can't believe Radcliffe still get mentioned for takeover. He's got no chance. Shogagan says Glazers depressing, Maguire versus Greenwood. Well, we'll talk about, maybe not Greenwood, but we'll talk certainly about the transfer stuff on the weekly Q&A in a bit. And Evan Carpy says, there was reports from Carlchum that Glazers will announce to sell a couple of some point in this. Is this true? Reports also say there's been no contact with Qatar. We'll talk about that. We kind of sort of did address that a little bit on the Q&A, but we'll get into that. So Tom, obviously, once again, thanks for coming on. So I think the first question I'll ask, and obviously, guys, if you have questions regarding specific the sale, get them in as well. But regarding the sale, I think the reports that seem to be coming out, especially from Samuel Lucas, one of the United correspondents from Manchester United Even News, was that the sale process is basically stalled. And there seems to be this kind of indecisiveness where the Glazers don't necessarily know whether they want to sell the club or not. Can you give us some sort of clarity regarding the situation?
Well, in terms of has the sale process, stalled? Is it on pause? There's another phrase. My understanding is that it's not. The process is still ongoing. It's still running. And the reason being why it's still running is there's been no decision made. So why would a process technically be stalled based upon that nobody knows really what's going on? It's not really stalled. If it's stalled, they would have said it's stalled. But it's not been publicly announced by Rain. It's not been privately put out there by sources or leaks from either of the camps, Rain, the people close to the Glazer family. Nothing's come out saying that anything to do with the process is stalled. As far as we're aware, it is business as usual. And from both parties, there has still not been that communication to say that either of them has won. But there has been a couple of tweaks and changes to certain offers that have been not necessarily made public because they're not major tweaks in terms of, say, what Sheikh Jassim has done in putting extra bids in past deadlines or anything like that. But you can change the terms of a contract or an agreement, and they have to look at it like you would with any contract. You could have, like you had, for example, with Daniel Levy, where, you know, Harry Kane was set to fly to Munich from Heathrow Airport, and he was told, stay at your local house at Heathrow Airport. We want to renegotiate terms. So there's no different in terms of the bidders, and they can do that as well. But as far as we understand, that the process is still ongoing. There has been no communication with either of the parties. And as far as we understand right now, there is no aims of communication that the parties are not reaching out anymore. They are leaving it at what it is now. And we said before that Sheikh Jassim imposed that self-imposed deadline where you got till Friday to give me a response, and if not, I'm walking away, but the offer's still there. You know, they've not opened up any communication and asked for any updates ever since that day. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe, as far as we understood 2 weeks ago, has not made any sort of communication with Rain regarding an update on what's going on. They're fed up with asking for updates, because why ask for an update on something that you keep getting the same answer back? The process is still running. We'll contact you when there's a decision been made. Like, there's no point in contacting somebody. You might just wait. You might as well just wait. Save your legs, save your email, you know, save your fingers typing on a keyboard and asking for updates or information on what's going on, and just wait for them to contact you with what the decision is or what's actually going to happen. So the process is still ongoing, and that is a pain to say for a lot of Manchester United fans, because there is still no decision. But I think it puts a lot of people more at ease knowing that the process is still ongoing and it's not at a stall, it's at a pause or anything like that. So there is still a bidding process to buy Manchester United Football Club.
I'm on mute. I think that's good to know, actually, Tom, because I think that does bring, a lot of clarity, because I think that a lot of the Manchester United fans, especially the media reports, you know, today and with a lot of fan channels, it just seems to be like, you know what, the Glazers aren't going to sell. The sale process is in the mud. It's done, etc., etc. There's no hope. But the fact that the process is still ongoing, which you would expect, you know, so because I mean, this is another question, because as soon as I've seen this jot on in parts, in that if, for example, the Glazers decide that they're not going to sell at all, and they just like, oh, we're not going to sell, could they potentially be in trouble for that, you know, in terms of stock manipulation or the rest of it? Or, you know, is that, or do they still have the you know, ability to be like, yeah, we even though we spent maybe a year and a half talking about this, we just don't want to sell anymore? You know, can they do that?
They can do that in terms of it's their club. Their father bought the football club. They inherited it from their father's, you know, passing, and they decided as a family to float up. It would have been, how much would it have been? 31% of the family shares of Manchester United on a publicly listed company site in New York Stock Exchange. And they turned Manchester United from a private company to a PLC. And from there, you will say that there is market manipulation, because, you know, the stock market for Manchester United, it always seems as if when major news outlets come out and report that, you know, a deal's, you know, close to being agreed, or there's some major breakthrough, or, you know, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's upped his bid, or I don't know, Sheikh Jassim's putting a seventh bid, or anything like that, the stock market and everybody who's trading and buying stock in Manchester United, the price of the dollar ratio goes up. And the one thing that I always knew with the stock market was, if you was ever going to be told via the stock market, Manchester United were in the final processes of being sold, it would go up to $30 per share, and it's never reached $30 per share. And I think, I could be, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the highest it ever went to was $26, $27 per share. And then when you have some rumor come out about the Glazer family not willing to sell, or that they're not looking to sell, or a couple of them want to stay, a couple of them want to go, that major increase on the New York Stock Exchange goes down. So the Glazer family, there is, as you say, laws against market manipulation. You can't manipulate the market and traders into thinking that you're going to sell something and then you don't end up actually selling it. You have to notify the stock market before you even make any announcement to Manchester United fans that you're not intent to sell the football club. And via doing so, then all of the traders and all the marketers know whether to buy shares in Manchester United or not. The stock market will be informed beforehand. So the Glazer family might have some sort of legal sort of trajectory. It depends on the terms that they signed up for when they put United on New York Stock Exchange. If there's a fine agreement that if you manipulate the market or trading laws, that you have to pay a certain amount of a settlement to the stakeholders or traders that have lost money, or there's different points, because we've been over the legal side of it with New York Stock Exchange and how that works with Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid and the other traders and the stakeholders not being able to accurately value their shares based upon he wants a three-way partnership with them and the Glazer family and himself. In the same way with the Glazer family, if they don't inform the New York Stock Exchange upon their decision and the traders don't then therefore know, the Glazer family will have to make some sort of financial settlement, for which I don't think they would want to do in this process unless there is some more money that is going to come available in a couple of years' time, which will effectively, this small problem legally with New York Stock Exchange will be minor in comparison to what you might gain in 3-4 years' time if a new Super League emerged, for example. And that sort of proposal was really the golden ticket for the Glazer family, because you was getting at least, hundreds of millions of pounds of investment in per year. You could have kept the stadium as it is. You could have made no investments at all. Dividends would have probably been twofold to what you would have been getting already. And they haven't been able to take dividends out for the last 18 months. So at the end of the day, there is frailties there because they haven't been able to do what they've been doing in recent years in comparable to now. So in terms of it, would they manipulate the markets? Yes. But it depends on what terms they signed up for in agreements with New York Stock Exchange, which are obviously classified, and non-disclosure agreements will be probably in principle in place for those sort of contracts. Therefore, no journalist will ever get their hands on them. So I can't sit here and tell you what the terms are, but there will be some terms and probably some financial settlement in place should they manipulate the market by not communicating to New York Stock Exchange correctly.
That makes sense. Let me quickly go to questions, and I have a few questions of my own. It reports that a person goes to Rain said no. So we'll talk about Rain in a second. Everything, Carpi. Is it due to the indecision between the Glazer siblings? I think that's a question of sort of like, is this still the reason why the Glazers have not come up said anything is because there's still indecision amongst the Glazer family, or is it that what is again going back to it again? What is again causing this sort of delay? Like, is it just that the Glazers as a whole are having second thoughts? What's going on?
Well, with any sort of transaction, it's very rare, especially this big of a transaction, it's very rare that you have to deal with more than two people. What I mean by that is there's not a lot of sports clubs or franchises. Yeah, there's, NFL teams and Major League Baseball teams that will be owned by families and things like that. Like Chicago Cubs are owned by the Ricketts family and certain scenarios like that. So it does have a process where families buy sporting clubs and they own them or put investment into them. But it's very rare that this big of a deal needs the authority and sign off of 6 members of a family. It's rare that ever happens. And the reason being why this has happened is because of the settlement that was in place when their father, Malcolm Glazer, passed away. And it wasn't a case of I'm leaving all of it to one sibling and they're the individual holder of Manchester United. These shares got split up individually between all of the members of the family. And then when they took the 31% and put it on New York Stock Exchange, for which they made double capital investment on from what they had actually listed the shares on at the time, when they've then made more money through the stock market, that's also gone back into their pocket because that's got nothing to do with Manchester United. It just means that that's United, the brand, not the football club. And that's the difference in comparison. So in terms of the indecision between the family, let me put it this way. You're in a business meeting and you're trying to buy something, aren't you? You're trying to buy a coffee shop or something. If you've got 6 board members that you've got to all agree for them to sell to you for, and one of them's not too sure about it, then there's going to be no sale. Or it's going to take some time to convince that person to get them on board. You're going to have to pitch to them. You're going to have to sell them something, or you're going to have to offer them what they're wanting and what their demands are. And as far as I've always been aware, the 4 other siblings, aside from Joel and Avram, have all insisted that they would be willing to sell their shares. And all of the 6 members of the Glazer family, as a family, have always insisted when they set up this process, there was a buyout price that they're willing to go for. And that buyout price for everybody that's been, really known to the story of the Glazer family is they want £6 billion. That's always been the price tag that's been floated from any news outlet. And nobody, as far as we're aware right now, has hit that. And unfortunately, the Glazer family have made their demands, and you can look at it from 2 perspectives. They've made their demands, and they're very shrewd and stubborn people, but they're also very slow decision makers. They always have been with anything that they do. So trying to get 6 people to agree on something that is more about what's going to happen individually for yourself rather than as a family, it's very hard to do. And especially when you have a lot of family members, 2 of whom are more involved in the football club than the other 4, who own the majority of the shares. So they really have more of the say in what the family decides because they control most of the shares. For example, Joel is the main Glazer family member who has the majority shares over every single family member. Avram, I think, has got a little bit less than one of the other siblings, but he's as the 2 of them, they have more than all of the other members together. So they really are the figureheads, and that's why they're the chairman, they're the directors that are on Manchester United's books, because they have the most shares and they have the influential say day to day at United. So in terms of indecision, the understanding has always been that the other 4 are willing to sell, like they were willing to get out with Apollo Investment, which that deal obviously didn't happen, as we've been over many a time. But Joel has always been considerate of the fact of the price of a Premier League football club has skyrocketed when you've had major US investment hedge funds firms come into any league, even Birmingham City recently, and they've used Tom Brady, a major sporting star, to really be the front leading figure for that. You've had it with Michael B. Jordan, who's in with it with Bill Foley at Bournemouth. So you've got different scenarios where investments coming in from the US. The Glazer family are capitalising on the fact of that people are willing to buy a Premier League football club, and we have the biggest one. Therefore, we're the big G's. We can demand whatever we want, and nobody's hit our price tag. So, right, well, we'll sit here then. And really, the thing that they're holding out for is, well, the price of football nowadays is only going up. A lot of Premier League teams are increasing ticket prices. I mean, the price of a Premier League football shirt now at any level, you're talking 60 quid for any club. That's an official one from a club store. That's how much the price of football's gone up from maybe 3-4 years ago, where you might get a full kit for 60 quid. But the whole point and argument of it all is they believe, especially Avram, that the TV and commercial deals that are coming into football, especially from UEFA, the new club FIFA club competition that will be coming out in a couple of years' time. The revenue that you will be able to generate from playing more matches, hence a Super League was in the mix to be formed. More matches means more revenue, which means more sales, which means more capital. Therefore, it means they can have as much capital coming into Manchester United, and they can just run the football club as they have done for 18 years. Take their little bit out at the end of every single calendar financial year. Right, we're done. See you later. See you till the next term, and we'll take another bit of money out. That's always been the mantra. So trying to get 6 people to agree on something that one of them believes that you're going to get more money in the long term for TV deals for you to stay is a very hard situation. And as we said before, and we'll say it again, they are under no pressure to sell this football club. Not anymore. They were in November last year because the club was sinking financially. But when they steadied the ship, they won a trophy. They got the fans back on side, put a bit of investment in. Erik ten Hag worked wonders really last season. 2 cup finals, Champions League football's back in the coffers. We've got the 120 million Champions League revenue. Like, we're sorted for another year. So they can sit here for another year and they could do nothing. And it's surprising to really nobody that there hasn't been a decision yet. So at the end of the day, try and get 6 people to agree on something that one of them believes that you can get more money out of in the long term is very hard to try and convince. And unless you're going to convince all 6 of them, like I say, there's a price that they will all go at, but nobody's met that price. Therefore, you still have the indecision, like Showkat Khan's saying here. You still have the indecision between the Glazer family siblings. Yeah, because nobody's hit what they want. And if you hit what they want, they'll go. It's as simple as that.
Thanks for that, Tom. Everything Carpi is the Glazers want more money and they haven't contacted Qatar. How are Qatar meant to give them more if they don't say anything? Bring it up because I've got a question for Tom in a second based on what he sent me. Do you think Qatar will hang on this through or move on? And then the more this drags on, ain't it the more the Glazers are losing as they're paying Rain to sell the club? Let me just quickly, so just from what you shared with me, Tom, so before, just so we're obviously just regarding Sir Jim and obviously Qatar as well. So I think the first thing obviously was the whole. Well, I guess we'll start with Qatar first, in that the idea that you're saying that the word on the Qatar side is that they believe that even if Glazer's family aren't fully sold on selling right now, when they see and take over the remaining capital in the club and the reconstruction financing need to make investment into the stadium, playing and the price of transfer markets unsustainable under the current model in place for the tenure. So by that I mean, like, is it a situation where you think that essentially the Qataris are happy to what's it called again, to play the long game and be like, listen, we know that this isn't going to be sustainable in the long run. We can, we can work on it. We can hold out for a bit, and then boom, so we'll come in and strike. Is that kind of how they're going about it?
Well, they don't necessarily have a time frame on offers. Their offer is a straight cash transactional offer. If there's no loaning from banks, there's no settlements in place. It is straight from Sheikh Jassim and the 9-2 Foundation, and wherever that money has come from, for which nobody knows, really, if I'm giving an honest answer. Nobody knows where the money's coming from. It could be government money. He might win the lottery overnight. Nobody knows. But the best thing that we can say from the Sir Jim Ratcliffe side is that he has connections to Wall Street's banks, where he's using JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs to take some capital investment, loans and bonds, as it was put a while ago, to furnish a bid to buy Manchester United. So he's not using Ineos's revenue. He's not using his own wallet. I know he's put some of his own money into the offer. If that makes any more, help towards his side of the offer, he has put some of his own money into the table, but there is still debt that he's borrowing from firms and banks, which that loans are going to have to be paid off at some point. But especially from the Qatar side, they're not losing any money. Their money's only going to grow, if you think about it. They're not losing any money because they don't own the football club right now.
Mm,
So
mm,
they're only going to gain. They're not really going to lose a lot unless they make a major investment as a nation or whatever in a worldwide brand or a company, an organization. I mean, they've just spent, upwards of, I think it was 200 billion pounds, dollars, something like that on a World Cup. And they didn't even flinch at it. So, these people, they know that the investment's there to buy the club. And from their side of things, you could argue that, they would argue that really they've waited 13 years to buy this football club. And I've said this story before. In 2010, the Glazer family were not looking to sell Manchester United, but you had the formal group of the Red Knights. And the Red Knights Consortium group had contacted Qatari nationals, and Sheikh Jassim was one of the ones who was in the conversation. The same Sheikh Jassim that's trying to buy Manchester United now was in the room when the Qataris were looking at partnering with the Red Knights Foundation to buy Manchester United. In the same way that, for example, the Reuben brothers and Amanda Savory with SSB Partners have partnered together with PAF, Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, to buy Newcastle. That would have been the exact same scenario that would have happened if the Red Knights and QIA, whatever, sporting vehicle, QSI potentially at the time, because they didn't own PSG, they could have used one of their financial vehicles to buy Manchester United. So you could argue they are playing the long game. They've waited 13 years to buy this football club.
True.
So waiting a bit longer, and I think that the polishing thing for them is they want to do better than their neighbours. They want to do better than the UAE, where they've bought a football club and really built it up like Manchester City have. Newcastle with Saudi Arabia are going to do the same thing. They're going to build them up to be a super giant of a club. Manchester United already is that right now. It just needs polishing and furnishing, and it's back to the level of the elite. That's all that it needs right now. And I think when you look at it from their perspective, is they will wait based upon that it's Manchester United. If this was any other football club, I don't think they would have waited this long and not demanded an answer, or they would have pulled out and walked away. Because Manchester United, in comparison to, for example, we could use it as a West Ham, because that's been a club that's been linked. Incomparable, they're not. West Ham's a very, old-fashioned, modern-day, London club. Yeah. Manchester United's a global brand, and people will call it the crown jewels of English football, because that's what many people claim it as being. And even rival fans admit that. There's a comparison: Liverpool, Arsenal, and Manchester United. They're the three trio that have the history and the legacy of English football, really, at the elite level anyway. So to buy the biggest one out of the three, it's worthwhile waiting for if you end up getting it. But as we said before, they don't know the motives of what the Glazer family are wanting to do with this football club. And they are not going to have any more gamesmanship, as the phrase has been used, where they're being pinned against mystery bidders, or they're being pinned against Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and we're still not going to have a decision. The one thing, and I've communicated this well over a month ago, was that Sheikh Jassim had left his offer on the table and he'd pulled away the negotiations clause, where I'm not willing to negotiate finances unless you pick me. And it's still the same point now. If they wake up tomorrow and they say, Sheikh Jassim, we want to go with you and the 9-2 Foundation, but we want a little bit more money, they're prepared to negotiate. But they are not going to bid again based upon that they don't know what the other person's bidding, but they also don't know what the Glazer family's motives are. They're basically bidding blind, and they're fed up of bidding blind. They want to know, what do you want to do? Make the decision for us. If you want to go with us, right, pick us and we'll discuss finances. And then we'll try and work a deal out that suits us, but also suits you. If not, go with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and good luck to you. And the rest of it will be gone. But because they don't know the motives, they're not willing to discuss any more finances or money. That they may or may not end up winning the football club in the end anyway. So it's either they would look more stupid for offering more and not getting it, or they would look a lot more bracing in they offer more and they'd actually get it. But they've offered more twice and they've had no responses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
what's it going to be? Third time lucky? Like there isn't really that feeling of we want to discuss anything anymore because you're not willing to communicate with us. So why should we communicate with you on anything else? And this, you're at a standstill.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let me just quickly some comments again. Sugar says, "Is the £6 billion just for the Glazers or for the whole of the club, including the debt?" I see that's referred to the Qatari bid. We don't know whether they've actually just bid up to 6 billion as of yet. I suspect it's been less than sort of 5, but we know that the Qatari bid does include servicing the whole debt, unlike Jim Ratcliffe. Shout out to Veta Games. Big up my guy, Veta Games TV. Make sure you head over and subscribe to his channel. He's a Manchester City fan, but a cool dude. So make sure you head over and subscribe to his channel, guys. Interest in buying United will always be there. Glazers can afford to wait for the new TV deal and any new league deals that develop. And then great show. Thank you very much, buddy. I agree with that. I guess maybe now. I think that, as Thomas sort of said, I think in November it was looking peak, I think, because finances weren't great, and then with the prospect of having to kind of like develop redevelopments for the training ground, Old Trafford, etc., which are going to need developments.
Put it this way, G. From a buyer's point of view, you would rather buy an asset that's failing. You would, because you're going to get a better deal. If you're going to buy something that's already successful and already perfect in every single way, what are you buying it for? You're not going to do anything better than the people that actually own it right now, are you? You're not. Let's be honest. Why do you think nobody's made an offer to buy City? They're not. They're not going to, because you can't do anything more with that football club. They're already doing what you would be doing in their position. Whereas with United in November, it was turmoil. You didn't know if you were going to get chopped for. You didn't know what the future of the football club was holding. You were going to a World Cup, which was something new to everybody in December. It never happened before. A World Cup in the middle of a season. And then, as you say, G, the interest, you had so many major sports investors at that World Cup. As I've reiterated before, Nasser Al-Khalifi, QSI president and head of PSG, he had a £4 billion offer to buy Paris Saint-Germain Football Club at the Qatar World Cup from a US sports investor. And he said, no, we're not willing to sell Paris Saint-Germain Football Club at this time. But thank you for the offer. So, as Vertigo Games TV is saying here, interest in United will always be there, yes. I'm sure there's a lot of people in the world that would buy United, but they're not going to buy it for something that they don't believe is the right price to buy Manchester United at. And this is why I say it's very, very ironic that there's no Americans willing to buy this football club right now. But you had upwards of, I think it was 40 interested parties from America that were interested in buying Chelsea. And Chelsea was a distressed asset because it was going out of business. In the same way United's finances were decreasing in November and the Glazer family thought, shit, we've got to do something here. We've got to get some investment. We've got to put the club up for sale. We've got to do something. And really, they have played the biggest game of chess and poker, because how you have gone through 9 months upwards of a process by not letting on or not saying anything of what you actually intend to do is remarkable. It really is. And I don't ever think anybody in any business deal anywhere can look at somebody and think, well, when you walk into a room, you know what somebody's thinking, or you know what the feeling is. You know the atmosphere in the room. If you walk in a room with these people, I don't even know if you'd think they were human. Because if you think that you can read these people, I'd love one of the best mind readers in the world. Somebody might be able to name one in the chat. Put them in a room with the Glazer family and see if you can read their minds. Because I bet they'd be one of the difficultest people that you'd ever try and read. Ever. Body language-wise, anything. But, yeah, go ahead, G.
Thanks for that, mate. Thanks for that question as well, Veta. Shoga says, is it about prestige to the Qatar? Make sure, but we've got 40 plus watching. Make sure you like the video. If you haven't subscribed already, please like the video. Get those likes up. We need those likes up. It helps with the algorithm. And make sure you comment below and subscribe if you are new. Is it about prestige to Qataris to buy Manchester United? I wonder. Don't know. I mean, yeah, of course, there's something to be said about you have England's essentially crown jewel football club, which is why I suspect there's a lot of backlash to Qatar buying it, but not particular backlash to the gym buying it, because the gym is British, and if a British guy owns the biggest, arguably one of the biggest clubs in the world, and certainly the biggest club in England from a media and financial point of view, so then it's fine, So I'm assuming I'm KK that you're trolling, so I won't read your comments out. Elias says, "We are cursed. Will these clowns, the Glazers?" Evan Carpy says, "Is the $6 billion in UK pounds, or as they have $6.5 billion on the table, and they're Americans to get what they want?" I think it's the whole thing is always going to be in dollars, not pounds sterling. Dollars, not pounds sterling.
Yeah. The way that the way I knew anyway from the bidding rounds, when they had the 3 rounds of bids, Rain disclosed to all interested parties, even when you just registered that you were interested, even if you didn't bid. I can recall of at least 6 different interested parties that registered interested in buying United during the World Cup. And then after the World Cup, the process was set up to say, right, this is how you bid. You bid in XYZ currency. You put your number here. You disclose sufficient proof of funds, so forth, and you put your bid in. And we'll have however many rounds of bids. A preferred bidder will be selected, which obviously that's not going to happen anymore, but they didn't know that at the time. And then you go from there, you finalise a deal, new owner of Manchester United, or, new partial investment into United, whatever. So the way the format had been set was you bid in dollars based upon it's their country, it's their nationality that you're buying it from. But the dollars will be transferred through the Cayman Islands, which means they get tax-free on it. Therefore, they get whatever tax-free in dollars. So it's going to be a hefty figure. Put it that way.
Of course, a UK asset, and the Americans get all the money, but everyone is fine with that. Interesting stuff. I'm sick of this. We will never going to see our club win the Premier League again. Well, I would argue that that's not going to happen anytime soon, Elias. Beta Games against does Tottenham's financial success with no trophy suggest that the Glazers can see more financial gains without investing out of their own pockets? Yeah, what do you think about that, Tom? That's an interesting question. What do you think about that?
Well, the thing with Tottenham is, like Bagata's saying here, is, they've got everything that you'd want as a modern day football club. They've got the attraction with the stadium, so they're never going to be short of sponsors. They've got the appeal of the training ground to attract some of the best players in the world based upon the facilities that you'd be working in, even if the team's not a success. The only problem is they just don't have the major success that other teams around them are having. They don't have the European glory. They don't have the domestic glory. And they haven't won a trophy in God knows how long. So from the legacy sort of sector, it's difficult because they don't have that. And they can't sell that. They can only sell what they've built, which is new stadium, new training ground, new philosophy of sponsors going forward. But from a Glazer family's perspective, they know what the price is to rebuild and refurbish Old Trafford. They know what the price is. They hired the same planners, the same architectures who built and modelled the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They hired the same people to do an assessment. The same people did a 3-month assessment of Manchester United. This was upwards of 6-7 months ago. And the process when they came out, the figures that were being quoted was, right, you want to build a new stadium at upwards of 80,000 capacity plus, 80,000 plus, you're talking nearly 2 billion. That's without any complications, any problems with, the local area restructuring. If you knocked Old Trafford down tomorrow, it's going to cost you 2 billion to rebuild it up again. But if you want to just build on what you've got and modernise it and effectively refurbish it, it will still cost you 1 billion. Just because of the actual mass, the size and the landscape of Old Trafford. So, in comparison, you could have a brand new glitzy stadium for an extra billion if you can get your hands on that money, or you can just refurbish what you've already got, but there's not really going to be anything new. It's really going to be a lot of the same of what you see now. So building a new stadium has a lot more perks to it financially than having building on what you already have, unless you already have the new stadium in place already, for which they don't. And it comes to the road now where I don't look at a lot of the brilliant biggest US hedge funds or in the financial sector on Wall Street. They don't loan major billions of pounds unless they're going to get something out of it, unless they're going to get a cut out of a sponsorship deal, unless they're going to have the naming rights for the stadium. I don't know, Bank of America, Trafford or something. Like, you're going to have to come up with some sort of a tagline. You're going to have to interest them in some way to actually make them want to invest their money in you to then build this. Or they get 20% of the ticket seats on the turnstile. Anything that you make on the turnstiles, they get a 20% fee of, which the Glazer family aren't going to want to do because that takes money out of their pockets. And you've come to the point now where you need a new stadium to compete, not only financially, but even in the sponsorship table. I'll go back to the same video. Richard Arnold was pictured at a local pub in Cheshire with a bunch of Manchester United fans. They asked him questions and he said, look, the sponsors are tight on us right now. We don't have a brilliant relationship with them. We're struggling to get agreements over the line. This was United defaultering on major debt repayments that they couldn't pay when the football club was in absolute turmoil based upon that they weren't getting the players in that they wanted. They chased Frankie de Jong all summer, didn't get him. But the sponsors are looking at pulling out, and I need those sponsors to keep the capital in the football club to invest with the manager. Those were the sort of wordings and responses that he was giving them, and we've burnt through cash in the last, 10 years, and we've got nothing to show for it. So at the end of the day, Richard Arnold looks at it from the perspective of he needs the sponsors in to still keep the football club going and go afloat, because he knows the Glazer family as owners will not put their own money in to keep it afloat. They would rather see this place sink than put their own money in it. And that's because they don't necessarily need Manchester United to be a superstar success. They already own another sporting club that's worth billions. So if one of them fails, the other one's still going to pay them out.
Exactly.
That's the perk of having two. And at the end of the day, they're still going to get some market value price for United. They're going to get up. I would be surprised if they wouldn't, even as a distressed asset, they would get over 4 billion. They would, because it's Manchester United. And a lot of the offers, as we know, are world record offers, and they have to go over £3.5 billion to be world record offers. So we know that people's bidding over the margins. But I understand the point that he's trying to make. Tottenham's financial success, but no trophies. United's history and legacy of winning trophies and the success there, but they don't necessarily have the appeal to attract sponsors. And I guess finally, to summarise, it sums up what the Glazer family are losing out on when Manchester United and Old Trafford is not even picked on the ballot sheet for the Euros.
Wow.
They didn't make the ballot sheet. The Etihad made it. Anfield made it. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium was actually the first stadium on the list beside of Wembley. I think the Emirates had made it. There was one more. I think Villa Park actually made it ahead of United. There was so many other options that had been chosen ahead of Manchester United, for which it's the biggest capacity club stadium in the system. It's a disgrace for it not to be involved, even in the state that it's in now. It's an absolute disgrace. And for it not to be, I mean, it just sums up that financially they aren't an attraction anymore, even to major tournaments. So that's going to be an issue that they're going to have to sort out in the long term. Otherwise, you could have a situation where you might have a World Cup being hosted in England and they don't even make the ballot sheet for that.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the adequate facilities to host major fans or mass capacity. Because they don't have the right hospitality in place for those fans. Therefore, you can't pick it as one of your choices on a ballot sheet. And it doesn't surprise me why the FA didn't commercialise for Old Trafford to make the list. It doesn't surprise me based upon that. It's the same thing just for Europe rather than the world.
Thanks for that, Tom. It's quite depressing, to be honest. So we've got about 15 minutes left of the show before we will switch on to the Q&A / Spurs review / transfer, basically. So if you've got some final questions regarding the takeover, get them get them in the chat. We'll get them done in the last 50 minutes, and then we'll be switching over to the Red Devil Weekly show, where we'll obviously talk about the Spurs preview, transfers, etc. So just one last thing, just from my side, from questions regarding obviously some Jim Radcliffe. So, and you kind of alluded to a little bit, Tom, in what you were saying with Sir Jim basically kind of adjusting his bid a little bit. So increasing the terms of investment of his bid so that the Glazer family sell. So should the Glazer family sell all shares to him, which is still an option. However, it's a prolonged buyout over 3 years, meaning not a full payout right here and now.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a bit more clarity just regarding like Sir Jim, what seems to be adjusting his bid and why he's doing it and why this might be favourable to him?
Right, so basically with Sir Jim Ratcliffe is he's increased the terms of investment of his bid. He's got 3 offers on the table that he put forward. He's got an offer at 69%, which is the one that he's increased upon. He's got an offer in place to buy, I think it was like 50%, or it could be 51%, something like that. To buy basically 3/4 of the whole shares and keep 2 of the siblings in. And he's got another option in place where he buys a percentage of each of the shares, but that has to be valued out. But they have to select that offer to then value it out at each member of the shares, which isn't a good thing for the Glazer family, because they've then shown their hand and they then might not agree the terms of those percentages. So effectively, he's got 3 offers on the table. He's increased upon the 69%, which would buy all of the members out. And I've got no numbers, and as I've said before, NDA agreements prohibit any stating of numbers, figures, finances to do with anything. That's why an NDA agreement's in place. But he's increased upon what he had bidded previously, which, as far as I was aware from the 3rd round of bids, which was his last offer that he made, but he put the 3 proposals ahead, he increased that one very slightly and put more investment on top of the original offer to buy 69% of it. Therefore, he's giving them more money for the 69% shares. However, that option is prolonged as a buyout. He's put the clauses in place where he wouldn't be able to buy United straight away at 69%, but he can buy them out at, say, 50%, but he still owns the club and they have no involvement. They would just get their money later on. So effectively, he's bought the 69% shares, but he wouldn't have all the shares there and then. It would take 3 years for them to do, but they wouldn't be minority stakeholders. They would just have to wait for the money to come through in 3 years. But it depends on how much he's actually putting up. And what I mean by that is, because it's over 3 years, arguably it would be in a 3 installment payment. 1 year installment, 1 year installment, 1 year installment. If he's put a lot of the money down for the whole contract up front, it would interest them a lot more based upon they're getting a lot more money straight away. But they would still get the rest of it in installments later. The matter to the Glazer family is, what does it all add up to later on? If it adds up to the most money, they'll wait. They'll get bought out at however much here and now, and then the rest of the money, they'll wait for that to come through. And then when it all piles together, they might actually get what they want in the £6 billion asking price. Who knows? It might be a case of, look, I've got the investment in place right now to pay $5 billion. I will give you the full £6 billion asking price. I'll give you $5 billion now. I'll give you 500 million next year, and I'll give you 500 million next year. And that totals up to what you want. Are you willing to accept the offer? But in the same case for Sir Jim Ratcliffe as Sheikh Jassim, he's had no communication to say that his offer has been accepted. He's had no communication to state for any updates. And 2 weeks ago, he pulled the plug, and Ineos had pulled the plug with Rain and said, look, you contact us when you've got something to say. Until then, don't contact us, and we're not going to contact you.
Mm.
In the same way that Sheikh Jassim effectively said, look, we're pulling away from the table, we're sliding his chairs back, we're putting his pens down. When you've decided and make your mind up, if you choose us, we'll swivel his chairs in, we'll sit up straight, we'll get the notebook out, we'll get the checkbook out, we'll write your check out. Right, let's do a deal. Until then, don't contact us. And the same motto and the same motives for Sir Jim Ratcliffe in this case. So effectively, he's putting the offer in place based upon he's increased his offer for 69% shares slightly. So he increased it after the third round of bids, and he's done the same thing now. However, it's not a major increase. And what I mean by a major, if it was a major increase, he might as well just put in a new bid, which he hasn't done. He hasn't put in a fresh bid. He's just increased the terms of it, for which, hence why mainstream media aren't going to report on something that's not significant. Whereas if he's, I don't know, put another billion on top of his offer, all right, that's something major to report about. If he's just put an extra 100 million on it, it's nothing. Nobody even needs to know about it. But he's only just changed the terms of one of the offers. Whether that gets a response from the Glazer family or not, who knows? But it's still, regarding from what we've heard anyway, is that it still falls short of the Glazer family's £6 billion asking price. So it doesn't meet it. It's effectively what I'm saying. But it might be a simple case of, like I say, the full offer doesn't meet it, but in an instalments package, it might. But because we don't know the numbers, we don't know how much the instalments are offering and how much is up front, how much is in second year, third year. Right, you're done, you're gone. We don't know, unfortunately. And that's the problem, and that's why I can't give that accurate answer to say how much. But what I can say is, in terms of a full stale payment, it doesn't meet it right now.
Thanks for that, Tom. Let me just quickly with some comments and questions, see if there's anything here. Let's have a look. 7.3 billion is what Glazers wants. Anyone pay that for this club? Man United are clueless, so let's hate to the Glazers. Zoritang TV says, I've always said it, Qatar will have to overbid a stupid price for United. It's not just a business aspect, it's the prestige of the name Manchester United. It's a one of a kind, it's in rare asset. Evan Carpy says, so the Glazers have what they want, then $6.5 billion. So what's the holdup? I don't think anyone knows. Zoiting again says, United might never be put up for sale for another 100 years. As in the Glazers will still, they all pass away and they hand it over to who do they hand it over to? I don't know. What's it? So they want 7.3 billion US. They want 6 billion. It's been from day one. Yes, I think that's generally been accepted. Kirk says at some point the Glazers have to sell 6 billion. Was a year ago. Everything can't be. Ratcliffe ain't got 2 billion to go by the club. How the hell is he going to build a new stadium? Not happening. Beta, shout out to Beta says, I'm sure United fans would accept a new name sponsor for a new stadium. Old Trafford will be no more, but you'll have a modernized stadium. Would you accept the RDS? Yeah. Yeah, just call it New Trafford. Like you don't have to. You just call it New Trafford. So that way, like you're referencing the old, but not completely dismissing it. But you realize that it's new. So New Trafford, like if new owners came in and suddenly redeveloped, got a new sponsor, renamed it to something like New Trafford or something, and just like I think a lot of Manchester United fans would be happy with that because they'd accept that it's like a new change. I think if the Glazers did it, then people would go, well, hang on a minute. Are you actually just is this actually a new direction, new change for the club, or are you just trying to swindle Manchester United fans out of more money? So that's what I think. I don't think if new owners come in, I don't think Manchester fans are going to be particularly unhappy with because a lot of the new owners will want to do stuff in the favor of the fans, just like you see with Saudi Arabia. What's up? It is a question for Tom. You think Glazers will stay or sort of? Well, that's the question we ask at the end of every show. So in about 5 minutes, we'll come back to that. United Red says, Tom, do you reckon Qatar end up buying a similar thing? We'll answer at the end of the show. Atonement. Don't forget to exactly, guys. If you're listening and you're new, remember to like and subscribe for new guys. Come on, get those likes up, man. This is free content. It's our time. And Tom, who has arguably been the GOAT journalist when it comes to sales talk and even transfers talk, which is going to be soon. Big up him and make sure you follow him on Twitter as well. So yeah, show some love, subscribe and share. We'd appreciate it. It says English media are clowns. Don't want Qatar. I want a new Habibi. Old Trafford. Face is low. New Trafford. I see what you did to. Yes, I know. So still got the old. I'd take New Trafford, man. I'd take that if it's under a Qatar ownership. Yeah, New Trafford, man. Old New Trafford. David T says, I think they'll sell because after this incident and months of negotiations, no one wants to negotiate with them ever again. It's bad business practice, and they would know this. Not worried. I agree. But the problem with David T that I have, I think, is that the Glazers have not shown, at least from their manager of Manchester United and their appointments, that they're good businessmen, that they're competent businessmen. And as we've seen, what business? I know it's a complicated sale process, but what business says to a group of people, "Oh, we're going to sell. We want this," and then decides, "I'm not sure," and then doesn't actually communicate at all with the people who are interested in buying? It just literally makes no sense. Like it'd be different. So if the Glazers had communicated with Rain and said, "Listen, we're disappointed. Don't think this is big enough. Guys, maybe another round of bidding or whatever." Fine. But the fact that they've just gone radio silence and not done anything, I don't get that. I don't get it at all. I don't get that at all. It is what it is. So finally, last 5 minutes before we sort of switch over to the Q&A. As the question that always comes up, and similar to what David T sort of said, Tom, do you think Manchester United, the Glazers, will still sell the club, and to whom?
My personal opinion is that they will sell some of the club. I don't see, like you say, and David T's already said, I can't see a world where they've gone through all of this negotiation. As much as both parties are frustrated, I think they would be, as a family, they would be frustrated in each other or themselves if they don't even come away with something. I think they've come too far not to accept something. And I don't think a minority investment offer cuts it, even just for them right now, because that just gives them a percentage. That gives them like 15, 20% of the whole entire family shares. That means nothing to a big picture. That'll give them a couple of 100 million. That's not going to give them over $1 billion. And if they wanted these big, offers to come on the table, as I've said before, the Sheikh Jassim 5th offer was a premium offer. The Sir Jim Ratcliffe offer, love it or hate it, as people might, as it's been, made publicly clear that they hate the Sir Jim Ratcliffe offer based upon it could potentially keep some of them in. It's a world record offer. They've offered world record fees to buy a football club, which really has been a failing asset for many years, both on the football field and also financially. So the reason why I say that I think they'll take something, and it really is a straight shootout. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim, the only thing that aparts them is Sir Jim Ratcliffe's one of the offers two of the offers that he's made out of the three keeps either two of them in or all six of them in. Whereas the Sheikh Jassim offer says, no, none of these are staying. But I want to buy you all out and I'm buying all the publicly traded shares. So the best way to put it is, if this was a case of like it was supposed to have been anyway, was Sir Jim Ratcliffe buys 69% of the shares, Sheikh Jassim basically doing the same, but he's just committing that he's going to buy the other 31% and make it a privately listed, a private company organisation rather than a PLC. If it was just a straight shootout between the two of them, it had always been put to me, and it's always been put out there to the public knowledge, was Sir Jim Ratcliffe would have been blown out of the water. And he would have been. Hence the reasoning why he's re-strategized and he's put 2 proposals there, which really are the only things that discredit the Sheikh Jassim offer. That's the only things that make their offer and his offer different, based upon that I can let some of these stay, but I can still buy them out in the long term, whereas you're not prepared to do that. You've come in here like a bull in a china shop. I'm the man with the money. I put my money where my mouth is. I'll offer you a world record fee and I'll buy you all out now. You can't go back on that now. And as far as I've always been aware, is he would never look at going into business. Qatar as a nation don't ever go into business with people unless it makes sense. They're not going to go into business with the Glazer family based upon the fact of they don't need them. Unless the Glazer family are going to offer them something significant, they're not going to keep them in place. Why? In the same way that any new owner that comes in and buys United are not going to look at Richard Arnold or John Murtough and think, oh, well, you did a brilliant job for the previous ownership, so we're just going to keep you for the sake of it. No. These are your roles now and jobs under me. This is what my idea is for United. I want to see you put my plans and principles in place. And if you're good at it, I'll keep you. If you're not, I'll bring somebody in that I want, or what, as they normally call it nowadays, my guys. I'll roll in my people. Todd Bowley did it at Chelsea. Manchester United would do it here and now. So for me, I think they will take one of the offers. And if I'm being very honest, I'd be shocked if they don't come this far and they look at the Sheikh Jassim offer and think, do you know what? We've had 18 years. This wasn't even our football club. We didn't actually own this. This was our father. And, you know, as maybe a present from the grave, our father's made us billions. He's made us billionaires from the grave. £700 million debt loan to buy United. What are we in it for, guys? As a family, what are we in it for? You know, Brian, Darcy, Avram, Joel, Kevin. What are we in it for, guys? What are we in it for? There's nothing left for us to do. We've took all the money out of this club that we can. We've let it dry. We've let the stadium rot to the point where we need to actually put money in, and we don't do that in our family. And third and finally, we have a multi-billion pound offer from somebody who, do you know what? I don't care where the money comes from. I don't care. I don't care if it comes from, you know, the oil rigs. I don't care if it comes from conflict. I just want the money. That's what they want. They just want the money. And they've always followed the money. And the final point I'm going to make is when that Super League showed them that they can make 3 times the amount of revenues that they could do in the Premier League and the Champions League with UEFA and the Premier League, they shot them straight away. They didn't even hesitate. They left without even consulting the Premier League or UEFA on what they were doing. They broke away. They sent letters of intent to the Premier League and UEFA to say, we won't participate in your competitions unless you let us form a Super League. And as soon as they realised that they weren't prepared to take them back unless they dropped the idea, they went back onto the sword and thought, oh, well, we've still got the Premier League money. We've still got UEFA money. It's fine. But when they thought they could get better and more, they jumped ship. And hence why I say now the Sheikh Jassim offers a premium offer. Sir Jim Ratcliffe offers a world record offer. They are going to take whatever's the biggest offer that suits them. Whether they have to wait longer for it or whether they get it now, it doesn't matter. So long as they get the money that they want or the most money that they'll get in the long term, they'll take it. And if I'm being completely honest, I think that they'll look at it as 18 years. We've been here a long time. Let's live a little. Joel Avram, should we go cruising around, you know, the Mediterranean or wherever? You know, let's go and buy a super yacht. Let's go on holiday. Let's go and relax. Let's flourish our 18 years worth of work for this football club. Let's go and do what we want to do with the rest of our lives and not have our names slung in the mud for the rest of the years as being, you know, arguably, as many people call them, the worst owners in football. Let alone forget the Premier League, football in general. And their family name really would be laid to rest because nobody would ever talk about them again. But at the end of the day, they're control freaks. They love the attention. They love the media, unfortunately. To say they don't do any interviews, they love it. They love the PR, they love the publicity. Unfortunately, like we say, we're 9 months here and there's still no decision made or still no harbitrary of it. But everybody, as I've always insisted, pursue full sale where possible. All of their advisors, the people that they're paying money to process this sale, to hire, to actually market, advertise this football club, are all telling them to sell. But they've not made the decision that they're wanting to. So it's either the devil you know or the devil you don't. Listen to what the people are telling you, or if you think you know better, go and do it yourself.
Fair enough. Guys, we're going to round up on this sales update. Like I said, guys, the show isn't over. We are going to be going over to the weekly Q&A where we're going to take your questions, but also briefly preview the United Spurs game and also talk transfers as well. So make sure you stay on. You'll be redirected to the next live show, which me and Tom will still be on, but we'll be focusing more on United's transfer chaos, Amrabat, Maguire, etc., as well as the Spurs preview, and then obviously just your general questions. It'll be much more laid back. I've always been quite serious with this whole sale update type of stuff, but with the Q&A, we tend to be a bit more laid back around things and stuff like that. So yeah, so thanks everyone for tuning in. Like I said, see you in about 5 minutes. See you soon.